and welcome back to Final Fantasy V. My name is Preach, and we are on a journey to explore all the single-player Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy V is our last base game before we go into the rest of them. This is episode 2, and I feel like an idiot. I feel like such a moron. I now know where I know the name Galuf from. I was like, oh my god, of course that's where it's from. I blame that I didn't enjoy Eureka. That's what I blame. That's what I blame. But our girl is back. I am shocked. We'll get there. We'll get there. Final Fantasy V is quickly becoming one of my favorites. I'm just going to say, it's right up there. I actually feel bad for FF7, and we had a great discussion. I know, and I'm really sorry about this, because some of you might be like, what's wrong with FF7? Like, if you've not been... We didn't do the TDP when FF7 was played. I'm really sorry. There's no, like, daily catch-up and summary of our playthrough there. But a TLDR, and I am doing, just so you guys know, on our main channel, there will be, like, a proper review of each game with research and stuff. This is our blind playthrough. FF7 is a very, very, very good game. It is. It's unquestionably very, very good. It's just not as good as many of the other entries in the franchise, which is what confused me as somebody who never played FF7 at the time. However, as we were talking about this yesterday, because I said, you know what? FF7 is kind of moving more down the list. FF5 is rising. Is that FF7 is the most influential game. And I was like, that's a great way of putting it. It is. It is the most influential Final Fantasy game. And that is, I think, objectively true. In terms of its, like, status as a game on its own, though, it doesn't compare to, like, 9 and 10 and 4 and 6 and things like that, which are just significantly better games overall, in my opinion. And 5 is quickly rising. 5 is quickly rising. So we've got our team, right? We've got our team, our wonderful team. And now I started the day by going to a town called Karnak, which is the Fire Crystal. So each town or major city in the game is controlled by a crystal. So we've been to wind, we've been to water, those crystals have been shattered, and now we're going to Karnak, which is the Fire Nation, in order to stop them from abusing their crystals, because they're going to shatter, and this is what's providing for the planet, essentially. And as we get there, I was like, oh, cool, new town. First thing we always do in an RPG when we go to a new town is we check the stores. Are there new upgrades, things we can get for our characters? Especially because Final Fantasy V has been quite hard so far. It's been a very difficult fight. Regularly running into difficult fights. So more power, more good. And I still haven't really decided on the jobs I want people to have, because the job system is so fantastic in Final Fantasy V that you can mix and match quite easily. One thing I've noticed is that because you have character level and job level only relates to the skills that they can use within that job. That's it. But if you swap very quickly from, say, let me give an example here. So let's say I turn my knight, which might be like a level 6 knight, and to a black mage at level 1, it's fine. It's not like those spells are going to be garbage, because your character level is fine. You're going to get great damage out of having Fire and Blizzara and things like that. It's totally fine to do that. It's just that when you swap back and you say, hey, I want my sub-job or my subclass to also be Black Mage, if you haven't leveled Black Mage, you can't passively as a knight use like level 3 Black Mage spells. That's not going to work. You need to invest into Black Mage to have somebody who can do both. So I imagine the end game of Final Fantasy V is like, my characters can do everything. They're gods among men. I could totally see where the end game is going here. And it's going to be a grind I'm not going to do, obviously, very similar to Final Fantasy 13, but I can see the joy in like every character being able to be doing whatever the hell you want and building this like ultimate synergistic party, for sure. Like the makings of later FF entries are blatantly written all over Final Fantasy V. It's a great system. So let's talk a story a little bit. I tried to buy, I was like, oh, a new sword for my knight. Fantastic. So I bought it and immediately got arrested. I was like, what? I'm literally like, I'm not stealing. This isn't Skyrim. Like, I'm paying for this thing. And they're like, no, arrest that man. We saw them coming out of the meteors. And all the monsters that come out of the meteors that have been crashing are bad. So arrest this person. So we ended up in jail, where we met an old man. I did guess that this was probably Sid. I was like, we haven't seen Sid yet, and there's mentions of Sid being around, so this is probably Sid. Lo and behold, it is Sid, who is, once again, a master engineer. But more than that this time. Sid is the one who discovered that long ago, the crystals were very, very powerful, and they could just do everything naturally. They were just totally natty, doing whatever they wanted to do. But over time, their power has been drained by something. So Sid came up with devices that would amplify their power. So he like boosted the crystals up, and that's what's causing them to shatter, because they're still being drained somehow, but he's like boosting the crap out of them, and he's basically overclocking the crystals in PC terms, and they're shattering. So Sid realized this as the builder of the device, and came and said, we need to turn off the devices because the crystals are breaking, and it's because of my machinery. That's why it's happening. So I was like, oh, cool. Okay, so we've got some sort of logical explanation for what is happening. Something, the darkness probably, is draining the power out of these things, and Sid built a thing to do it, and he's recognized it logically as the person who built it. This is a problem. I was like, this is all a cohesive, good, easy-to-follow narrative that makes sense. Ah, bless my heart, especially after the ending of FF13. I was like, this is fantastic. Everything fits. The jigsaw pieces make sense. There's a logic to it. As we're discussing this, Sid is very in disarray, and suddenly the fire crystal is going haywire, and the counselor comes in and is like, Sid, you were right. The crystal's going to blow up. We're sorry, dude. Can you help us out? And he's like, I don't know. I'll need the help of these guys. And they're like, no, these are meteor people. And he's like, well, I need their help to fix this. And he's like, okay, we'll help them out. And we're freed from prison. So then we need to, this was the only, I just talked about how logically consistent everything is. The next part of the story was, I had a little bit of a logical inconsistency, which is a bit odd. The fire crystal is, we're told in the castle, the fire crystal is located beneath the castle in Karnak. And then they believe it's like, what else could be draining the crystal? What could be causing this? And they have a ship that is powered by the fire crystal, similar to how the wind area used sails, obviously. They have a ship that is powered by the fire crystal. So it's like, well, it must be the ship. It's got to be. It's the only thing we haven't deactivated is the ship. So let's go to the ship. So you leave the town, you go to the ship. And he's like, right, you need to go to the fire crystal. It's below the ship. And I was like, wait, what? The fire crystal is below the castle, isn't it? And he's like, you need to go in there. It's infested with monsters. So we have a dungeon, obviously. We go down into there and we fight our way through there. And it's a very mechanical ship. This was actually a nightmare. I just want to put a point on this. They pre-warn you. There's a guy in a house in Karnak who tells you what dangerous enemies you're going to come up against. And he says, hey, these specters or whatever they're called, if they're ever on their own, because Final Fantasy V employs a lot of mechanics in how their enemies work, if they're ever on their own, they will cast Flash. And as an idiot, I was like, what does Flash do again? I can't remember. And I was like, yeah, it won't be a big deal. Anyway, Flash is blind, and it just AoE blinds everybody in the party, and as all my damage comes from the Giga Monster Galuf, I was like, oh no. And I had zero ways of clearing. I had no eye drops, I had nothing, and ended up deep in the dungeon, and it's also a maze. I was in a maze with a blind party, and of course, we always stick with our decisions. We can't reload the save, we can't do any of that. We deal with our consequences, because it leads to great moments like this, where we would try to fight. I was like trying to actively find my way out of this maze, while simultaneously not finding it and ending up deeper in the maze with a party that was fully just reliant on Galuf. But the good part about this is, one, it was really fun, and two, it forced me to manage the enemy packs better in order to counteract what was going on and use a lot of resources like ethers and things like that to keep us alive. And summons were really good, like trying to get Shiva out to diamond dust everything. It was great. I eventually found my way out, went to the shop, bought a bunch of eye drops, came back in, cleared the dungeon. This led to a wonderful I love this that they did. This was great. This was so fun. Is that you fight a little boss, and the crystal shattering, and the crystal shattering is actually destroying the castle because the fire crystal is under the castle as well as the ship. They use this like vents to connect the two places, but I was like, why would you build like an air vent that goes to a ship? But whatever. Whatever. Destroying the fire crystal is destroying the castle. And they give you a timer sequence. 10 minutes to do it. Now, 10 minutes is a very long time. Until you realize that the castle had a ton of loot in it that was inaccessible before because it was blocked by fires because the crystal was going haywire. And those fires are now gone. So you can just walk out the castle and probably be out there with 9 minutes to spare. Or your greedy instincts can kick in and you can loot the castle. Well, I mean, you know what's going to happen, right? Obviously. And not only that, the loot that you can get is really good. Really, really good. At this point, I think I was poor. I probably had something like 1,000 gil to my name. By the end of this sequence, I had over 20,000 gil. I picked up brand new weapons that were really good. I also picked up a ribbon. I was so excited. I was like, ribbon? You're fighting Gigas that are looting just constantly. If you steal from them, you're getting elixirs and all sorts of great, wonderful loot. And then there was like a doorway I could have gone through, which led to a roof, which I didn't see anything immediately. But then I realized I killed the mini boss that's protecting the exit, and I still had 2 minutes to spare. I was like, we can make it. So I sprinted to the top of the building. I was like, we can make it. We can make it. I can totally make it. And I was like, I'll leave with 50 seconds left or whatever. And I made it to another thing where I got a main gouge, which was a wonderful upgrade. But I couldn't get to the other side of the building in time, and I had to sprint. I made it out with 20 seconds left or something like that. And then, of course, the meme started. It's like, well, on the other side of the castle, there was, like, Excalibur. All that is lurking in the castle, and you missed it. I was like, whatever, that's the situation. And also, it's a bit early in the game to be finding Excalibur, but that's fine. That's fine. But what a wonderful sequence. Absolutely great. Proceeding on, then, we now have access to the Library of the Ancients. Because the destruction of the castle has broken down the barriers nearby that were preventing us from advancing on the world map. Going to the Library of the Ancients, this was shocking. We met Mid from Final Fantasy 16. I was like, Mid? So, and this is when it's great when you're playing the game sort of out of order is... I'm sure there's a lot of people who played Final Fantasy V and knew exactly who Mid was when in Final Fantasy 16. It's like, oh god, it's Mid from Final Fantasy V. Well, I just have the same exact feeling, but it's in reverse. I'm like, oh my god, it's Mid, who is Cid's grandson in this game. And I was like, no way, Mid was borrowed from Final Fantasy V? Like, that's crazy. That's so bizarre that this character was brought up into the modern era. And it also reminds you of the love they have for their world. It's like, okay, we want someone related to Cid. Well, we did that in Final Fantasy V. It's Mid. And it's like, oh, cool. So we can have Mid in the modern game. And that's a nice reference and tie into our overall sort of... They're not linked in any way, but the overall Final Fantasy bubble. And so it was cool. We fought through the library. We rescued Mid. And Mid has found a way of making the ship work without the fire crystal, because the fire crystal is obviously broken now. And Cid is very depressed because his machines are destroying the world, etc., etc. So we're going to go back and get the ship working and things like that. So that was wonderful. I had fought Ifrit in... I think we've overcome the hump of the game being hard, potentially. Because we fought Ifrit, which was similar to the Shiva fight, where you get Ifrit as a summon. And the Shiva fight took me multiple tries and kind of luck and min-maxing to overcome. Ifrit we killed first time. Which was great. We still died to a couple of bosses, but generally speaking, we seem to be over that hump of initial difficulty. Now we're doing more encounters, and our jobs are lining up a bit more, so we're a bit more powerful. So that's working out. I hope the game doesn't become easy, but like I said, we're still dying, but definitely easier right now, which was cool. We get the ship. Final Fantasy V has a running theme of giving you modes of transport that are immediately ruined. Like, we have had chocobos. Boko is probably not dead, but Boko's gone. Sildra, the dragon that pulled the boat, is dead. We've had a dragon, a flying dragon. I can't remember the name of it. The wind dragon, that's gone now. And now we've got another boat, which was powered by the fire, that lasts one journey. We go across the ocean to Crescent Island. They're all talking about there's something buried beneath Crescent Island. We must go to Crescent Island. I'm like, okay, we're going to Crescent Island, our next location. So before that, I did do an interesting little dungeon, which was a cave of the ancients. I feel like I'm not done with this place because it was only 2 rooms. It was a mini puzzle of could you work out how these skull switches work, which I could, which led to just a cave with not particularly exciting loot. There was a meme. Previously, I had released a wolf, a lone wolf thief from prison, because I thought, why not? And looting the chest finds a note saying, this has been robbed by the lone wolf. So who knows what was supposed to be in that chest, or whether the lone wolf will keep showing up in terms of like empty chests because the lone wolf has robbed them. But this dungeon lasted about 5 minutes. Had the worst enemies in the game in it, called Skull Eaters. These things hit for 1,700 damage. My health bars are 500. And it hits... And if you hit it in a certain way, it just spawns 9 of them and wipes you. Like, clearly this is comedy, because the other enemies are just these little squirrel dudes that do no damage and die in one hit. I did find out that if I throw a scroll at them, they do die, and I was like, I got you, because other than that, they're, like, immune to all damage. I was like, what is this enemy? Like, they're absolutely trolling with this. But it was fun. But I didn't get much out of it, considering it was supposed to be, like, the Cave of the Ancients. So I think we'll probably be going back there at some point. I went over to Crescent Island, where it's... They're going on about how lush and beautiful the earth is here. And bountiful. And we don't even need to do anything. And the earth is great. So I was like, okay, it's the Earth Temple, right? But they seem like blissfully unaware of it. Because the mystery is there's something beneath the Crescent Island. They're like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. We constantly have bountiful earth and soil and natural hot springs and things. It's wonderful here. No earth crystal. I was like, okay. Sure, dude. Wonderful. Well, that's not the point, right? We're going to do the Earth Crystal. The big point here is the revelation of who Galuf is. And we get the reveal of who our antagonist is for the game. And I can't express to you guys how much of a moron I felt when who should walk out to jog Galuf's memory than our girl, one of my favorites, Kryl. Oh, man, I was like, it's Kryl! And I was like, oh, God, it's Kryl's grandfather! I was like, oh, my God! It's the whole Dawn Trail where we're going! I was like, what? I can't believe! And everyone was Pepe laughing. I was like, how did you not remember? I was like, because there's 8 billion names in the Final Fantasy universe. Of course, every now and again, something's going to skip my memory. And I was like, God damn it, it's Kryl's grandfather. And then I was like, wait, Kryl's here! And there has been no Final Fantasy game that has used the name of a Scion in this way. Like as another character. Like one of the FF14 Scions. There's no Y'shtola. There's no Alphino and... I mean, they could be based on Pollum and Palom, sure. But they're not called Alphino and Alizé. There's no Urianger. There's no Thancred. You know, there's none of that going on. Tataru Taru is obviously mentioned as a location in 2. But it's not... It's not... a person, right? It's not a person. So I was like, Kryl's here. Oh my God. And Kryl's revealed to be the granddaughter of Galuf. And he has this memory when he sees another person playing with their granddaughter. And he's like, oh my God, it's with Sid and Mid. It's Sid and Mid who inspire this. Sid and Mid. Who inspire this memory. And then we get the revelation that Galuf, the absolute hero of our story, because he is soloing every fight, essentially, is not of this world. It's like, well, that makes sense. He's got this, like, god background. He's got the blood of gods in him or something like that. I was like, this is incredible. This is so perfect for how our story is playing through with shirtless monk one-shot animal that is Galuf. Is not of this world. And then it turns out, okay, so Galuf has been on the planet before, hundreds of years ago, and him and 4 others sealed away Exdeath, who is going to be our antagonist. Now, Exdeath is an awful, awful name. We surmise, and there's some evidence of this, that this is actually a mistranslation. It was supposed to be Exodus in the Japanese, but like they translated it literally as Exdeath, because Exdeath is a terrible name in English. But whatever, that's going to be our antagonist. And Exdeath is the darkness. And hundreds of years ago, these 4 people, Galuf, the werewolf, and 2 unnamed people, sealed him away using the crystals. And obviously he's been trying to break out, which is what's been like draining the crystals originally of their power. And now the crystals are shattering, so the portal will open. Oh, they keep saying the seal will be broken. We're going to throw wide the gates, and Exdeath is going to be revealed once more. And like, oh god, her name's escaping me. Lenny. Lenny's dad, King Tycoon, is controlled by Exdeath and things like that. So this is our main bad guy. Is Exdeath. And so, sensing this was about to happen, the 4 heroes of old, so obviously like the original Warriors of Light, have returned to put Exdeath back in his prison. And Galuf is one of those people. Lord Galuf. So I assume we've met the other person in the past of the 4, or one of the 2 other named characters, because earlier in the game, someone refers to him as Lord Galuf. So they know who he is. And Galuf is back, and he's, you know, he's an alien. He's like Arnold Schwarzenegger has returned to put the Predator back in his place. And that's what's going on with the story, is that the meteors are not part of X-Death's return. The meteors are actually the travel system that these 4 have used from their planet to arrive here. So each of the 4 meteors we've seen land, that's why Galuf was at Meteor 1. The werewolf came from one of the meteors, and the other 2 came from different meteors. So there's 2 other of the old 4 that we need to find at this point. But that's what's going on. Kryle's here and Mid's here. I can't believe we've got all the way to the end of the single-player FFs, and these moments are still happening for me. It's like, oh no, it's Mid! Oh my god, it's Kryle! Or even just coming up to a town, like in 13, it's like, oh, it's Palom Polum! It's like, oh, that's from, like, 4! That's awesome! That's so cool! Like, all these things are still happening. This world is still tying it together. And I get somewhat excited when it's like, oh, it's a free. Like, even though it's in my mind is one of the most, you know, mid of the primals, whatever we want to call them. You know, he's the fire guy. It's still exciting. It's like, oh, it's a free. Oh, it's Shiva. Like, it's still like, yay! These are still here. And I get that, like, childlike wonder. I'm always expecting Loperates to show up at some point, but I don't think so. But it's all these things that tie the FF universe together that are so fun that I'm super excited. Like, so far, FF5's combat, perfect. Job system, wonderful. Story, atmosphere, music, absolutely 10 out of 10. So that's where we're up to. Earth Crystal up next. And I don't know who else. I don't know if Kryle's going to play a part, or whether she'll just be a side card. So I have no idea. But we'll see. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.